In the previous video, I made a mold from this miniature figurine from Reaper Miniatures, and the mold came out great. It just worked perfectly, everything went fine, made a really, really clean casting. And one of my points was that you can take a figurine with lots of parts, as this has 4 or 5 parts, and assemble them all together in a single tree, a single mold. One pour, one figurine cast successfully. But the other thing that I wanted to do was I wanted to pour it in my sculpting wax so that I could make a wax version of this and therefore use it to resculpt, to make a whole new figurine out of it, to modify it, to change it, do whatever I want to it. It's one of my favorite techniques. Take something that exists, recast it in wax, and then resculpt it. I've used the same material, the same rubber, and the same wax since the 1990s, and never before have I seen it stick, bond, like this did. This mold is absolutely bonded to the wax. I've never seen that before. This is just a total mystery. How does this happen? This week, I'm going to figure this out. We're going to have to get this wax out of this mold without hurting the mold, clean it, and then figure out what happened. And hopefully at the end of the day, we'll wind up with a wax casting, but I don't know where we're going to go here. I'm in uncharted territory. This is blog style YouTube video making. Stick around. Let's have some fun, see what we can find out. I'm over at my beautiful broil king. The old infrared bacon broil. It's been around about 100 years. I'm going to just heat the mold and the wax so it'll just drip out. I don't want to burn up the rubber because the elements are really hot. So, to prevent that, it's simple enough just to tent it with foil. That's really all it takes. This oven is just about on its lowest setting, and in fact, for double insulation, kind of like the James Webb Space Telescope, you can just use multiple layers of insulation. And that works pretty well. It works actually remarkably well. Got the mold out of the oven, and it is hot and it is gooey. Well, this is what we needed. Let's pull it open, see what we get. What a mess, what a mess. There's not a lot of wax in there. Guess we could just let it run out as best we can. So, all right, let's do a little experimenting here. I'll do a little bit of wiping. Man, oh man. This reminds me of when my daughter was an infant. All right, I'm gonna let it cool, see what happens. I let this mold cool overnight, and let's see about the chipping business. This wax should just chip right off. But look at that, look at that. You see that? Look at that. It doesn't chip. Look at that. It's actually bonded on there. It's like it's glued on there, but it's probably not a chemical bond. It's probably some kind of mechanical bond. But I mean, I could practically tear the rubber. It's got a really strong bond. But let's put some heat on there. Okay, so as you can see, I can heat the rubber and it comes right off. So we don't have a chemical bond. We have some kind of a mechanical bond, but it's a fierce one. I mean, you can't crack this out of there and just pop these chips out. They should just pop right out, but they aren't. So I think the only thing we can do with this mold to recover it is going to be to heat it and wipe it. Let's see what should have happened. This is the same rubber that I've been using all along on this channel. Let's just do a little test. Let's get the wax good and hot. And simultaneously, I'm going to heat the rubber. I'm going to heat them both. All right. I heated up the rubber so that it was as hot as the wax, and I knew that because it kind of flowed out onto it. It wasn't sitting on top of it. So let's let it cool and we'll see what happens. I put a blob of wax and melted it onto this paper. You can see it soaked through the paper pretty good. This is definitely a mechanical bond. This is what you'd expect to have happen. You're not going to peel this stuff off of here. It is bonded, and you can see it. So in a porous surface like canvas or wood or paper, you would expect the wax to mechanically bond to the surface. But in silicone, you would not expect it to bond to the silicone. What you would expect is that it would literally just fall off like that. I mean, that's what should have happened in that mold. Did you see that fall off of there? It's just, it's not bonded at all. But now what you're saying to me is, yeah, but this is a glass smooth surface. I mean, yeah, of course it popped right off. But what would happen if it was a really rough, irregular surface? That's a good question, and let's test that next. Okay, so what I did was I made the wax hot, and I found a little chunky of a mold that has a lot of surface detail in it. Get it nice and hot. Okay, I'm going to pressurize that right now. Cooled down nicely while it was in the tank, and now it's ready to come out of the mold. Let's see how we do. Look at that. Look at that. That's, I mean, this is stupid. Look how easily that fell out. That's crazy. So what happened? I really am curious to know what happened with this particular mold. And to figure it out, what we'll do is we'll try our best to clean it out. I just don't know of a better way to clean this mold out. I'll tell you what, this is really reminding me of my bad old diaper days. My diaper dad days. Oh, yes, what a mess, what a mess. Get this mold opened up and cleaned as much as we can wipe it out. Once in a while, you accidentally mix 2 parts of A resin together or 2 parts of B resin together, and so you have uncured resin that you got to clean out of the mold. This reminds me of this. No fun at all to clean out a mold. This is not the first time I have cleaned out a mold. Let me tell you, it's happened many times. I'm sorry to report. Fun, huh? Lots of fun to clean out a mold. Doing this, by the way, is pretty much exactly the same way you do it when you have uncured resin in your mold. You just have to clean it out as best you can. Okay, time to break out the old paint thinner, and I'm going to put it in this pie tin, and the reason for all that is I'm going to get it warm, and I don't want to catch it on fire. Got some foil handy in case I have to snuff something out, but I don't think so. I think we're going to be very safe, and we're just going to get it warm. Put this in here. Paint thinner is an excellent solvent for this wax. Swish it around. Yeah, look at that. Look at that, clean that off of there. See? See? That's what we want to see. Normally, I always keep my hands squeaky clean when I work. Never let anything get on my hands. But I think there's a pretty reasonable chance that that's just not going to work doing this messy job. So, you know, this isn't really heart surgery. I think this is a lot more like proctology. So I think gloves are a good idea. We're just going to burn through a paper towel like it's going out of style. Paint thinner's nice and warm. Okay, I think you guys get the idea. I'm just going to go through here, probably going to wind up not just using rags, but using Q-tips. And it's just going to be a not that fun, time-consuming, tedious job to clean this mold out. Okay, I got it pretty clean, not perfect, but pretty clean. Notice I also tore the mold a little bit. Got kind of brittle with all that heat and solvent, but it's clean enough, I think, for us to try a casting. Here's the interesting thing. As you can see, it is not wanting to close up very evenly. Look at that. And the reason for that is that the temperature of the mold is very much uneven. And I might suspect too that it may have absorbed some paint thinner. So anyway, what we're gonna do is we're gonna let this mold normalize for 24 hours before I try another wax casting in it. But I do wanna make a test. So let's clear out. As you can see, I made a bloody mess. Cleaning this thing out, Q-tips, very helpful. So this wax and this mold is the exact combination that just bonded, which just stuck. So let's heat up the surface of this a little bit. In theory, this wax should bond tight to this rubber just like it did before. Let's let it cool. In fact, I'm going to let it cool overnight, and we'll see what it looks like in the morning. Okay, this has been cooling for hours. What do you guys think? You think it's going to peel right off? You think it's going to stick like glue? What do we got? What do we got? Let's see what we've got. Look at that. Okay. Now, all you pundits and wise guys, what do you think? Pulled right off. This mold was hot when I poured this wax. This wax was hot. Now, I can tell you right now that this mold has suffered a little bit from the rough treatment I gave it. I think we're going to get reasonably closed parting lines, but we're going to have to massage them to get them nice. This mold is no longer pristine. It's it's been through the war a little bit. This happens to molds. The more you use them, the more they degrade. So, all right, so let's go heat this mold. Okay, let's get this mold put together. It's nice and warm. Just took it out of the oven. Let's put some pressure on it. Let's put this kid together as best we can. I think that it's still somewhat swollen in the middle. See if we can't squeeze this mold into alignment. See, I'm going to try to tickle this mold together, but it's just not going to close up as well as it originally did. It's going to be tighter in the middle than it is on the edges. Okay, let's go get the wax. Okay, let's pour. See what happens. Let's make a little pour spout on it. Make it easier to pour. Wax tends to pour a little slower than resin, and it's a little harder to get it to rise up. But the mold is warm enough, and it should work. And here it comes up this other leg. So we know it's risen up to that point. It's going to be slower on the side clubs because they have thin channels to rise through. Okay, it's up to here now in this one. So we've got it coming pretty good all the way up. Fill it there. Make sure that it fills these side sprues. Come on, baby. Okay, it did this one on this side. There it is. Came up all the way up. So it rose perfectly all the way through. You can see that the wax is not over hot. You can see how it's starting to set up. It's just above its melting temperature. In fact, it's not wanting to fill right in there. There you go. Okay, I left a little room for shrinkage. Let's run this into the pot and let's say a prayer to the gods of mold making that we have some good result. Took this mold out of the tanks, looking pretty good. Got a couple suggestions from the comments. People said, why don't you put the mold in the refrigerator? So I said, all right, I did that. So I stuck this in the refrigerator for a while. It's nice and cool. Okay, I risked it. I said, maybe I'm just repeating the same mistake I made the last time. Let's find out. Here it goes. Now this time it looks, look at that. Uh-oh. Okay, the arm broke off. Well, got some broken parts. Little arm broke off. They're pretty brittle. Oh, this will be interesting to see if these come out whole and intact. Won't that be fun if I can get this war club out intact? Oh, look at that. Not bad. All right, great thing about this is it's not resin, it's wax. You can just put it all together. But this is what was supposed to happen the first time. It should just pop out, just like that. It should just pop out. No worries at all. No difficulty. It should just pop out, just like that. Oh, nice. Pretty good detail, I would say. So we broke some parts, big deal. You can weld them right back together. All right. So this is what should have happened the first time. Everything points to a missing ingredient, a missing component that caused the sticking. And I have a nagging suspicion that I know what it is. When I went to melt the wax in the chunks, I went through my scrap bin, my offcuts bin of wax, little chunkies, put them in there, and one of the chunks looked like this. Looked like that. And a little tiny alarm bell went off in my mind, but I figured, it'll be okay. It's gonna be fine, don't worry about it. But this chunky was originally in this bag. And what is in this bag are tests that we made. Lots and lots and lots of tests with different wax combinations, trying to find the sort of ideal sculpting wax. Now we did this like a decade ago, more, a long, long time ago. These have been sitting around, and these must be the failed tests because I still have them stored and I've never used them. But one of the waxes that is a component of sculpting wax is Carnauba Wax. And I broke out my big giant 5-pound bag of Carnauba Wax. And one of the characteristics of Carnauba Wax, you know where you see it a lot is, and you see it in car polishes, car waxes, furniture waxes. It's really hard, it's brittle, but it's also really sticky. And so my guess is, and I think this is the best answer that I can come up with, is that there was Carnauba Wax in a pretty high proportion in this chip of wax. And when I melted it with the other chips of wax, it stuck. So let's go ahead and melt some Carnauba and see if that is the most likely culprit for what caused the problem on this mold. Break out some Carnauba. Get the surface hot. All right, melted a little Carnauba onto the surface. Let's let that fully cool and see what happens. All right, the Carnauba is cooled. Let's see if it's stuck. It popped off, but let's see, does it stick? It's pretty stuck. Man, it's brittle. Oh yeah, it's definitely stuck on there. Yeah, it's popping, but it is sticking. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. Okay, I think that we've found our sticky ingredient. It will pop off, I think, but boy, it's holding on pretty good. I'm having to pop it pretty hard. So you combine this very brittle, sticky wax with the much softer, much more flexible, much harder wax with lots of filler in it, and you add to that a very rough mold. And what you've got is a surprising amount of mechanics. I mean, there's some pretty good. I'm lifting pretty hard on this. I'm jamming, trying to lift it. And I'm pushing pretty hard on this. And it broke. Okay, that popped off. Yeah, I'm going to say this is our culprit. So that's exactly what happened. Come on, come on, come on. Oh, there you go. So there it is. I think the problem all along was a little bit of Carnauba wax. The Carnauba, when mixed with the other waxes, made a really strong, sticky wax that bonded amazingly well to the rubber. We got a lot of comments about what might have caused the problem. Thanks to all of you for sending those in. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you liked it. If you did, hit that like button. It really helps the channel. And I will see you next week. Freaking Carnauba wax caused me all this misery, pain.